Welcome to another episode of Positive Solutions for Life. This is Peggy Meyer. Today's guest is Jennifer McFarland. Jennifer is a speaker, author, ADHD advocate, and TFT Tapping practitioner. She is the founder of Monarch Dawn, where she combines her passion and purpose by sharing a way to heal from the past with a practical plan to create hope for the future. She's developed Custom Made Change, a course that teaches how to create a personalized plan to finish what you start, even with ADHD. Trained in TFT under the internationally acclaimed Kevin Lay over 10 years ago, Jennifer shares this powerful opportunity to release lingering pain from past experiences. She's one of the authors in this book, Strength to Shift, in which I am as well, and I'm honored to be a part of that book with you, Jennifer. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm so excited for our conversation today. And with that, can you start by just sharing a little bit more about you, your journey, and how it has led to where you are today?
Sure. I am born and raised and stayed in Michigan, and I currently am the parent of three adult children. And when they were little, I was primarily a stay-at-home parent and had some side jobs here and there. But in addition to parenting, I was really struggling with trauma response. And it was 2013 that I was able to try TFT or tapping for the first time, and it transformed my life. It was such a profound experience that I took advantage of the opportunity to get trained in TFT a couple months later. So I've been doing that since January of 2014, and that was sort of the first step in making progress to change my life in the present and going forward, was getting rid of like a lot of the junk I was still having to deal with from the past.
Mhm.
And so that led to me working on changing my behaviors because I had the common coping mechanisms that you have when you're dealing with life in general, but also with trauma, and they weren't healthy. So I really wanted to change them, but I struggled to follow through with
Mhm.
those decisions. So that led me to do some study and look into habits and willpower and mindset and goal setting, and kind of all that information came together for me, and I put it together in a system that I call Custom Made Change.
Mhm.
And with that, I was able to quit drinking pop. Haven't had any pop since 2014, when I was drinking at least a 2 liter a day. And I was able to start exercising at the time and eventually participate and finish 2 triathlons.
Oh, congratulations.
So I was like, hey, this really works, because before I couldn't get to the gym more
Yeah,
than 2 weeks in a row.
right.
So I'm like, wow, this is really something. So I want the opportunity to share it with other people. So I started doing private tapping sessions for people, and also sharing custom made change for anybody who wants to do something different
Mhm.
or something new.
Mhm.
And along the way, I recognized that I have ADHD. So I throw that on top of the whole thing, and that sort of explains the "and" in my life, because it's hard to do just one thing and
Mhm.
focus on one thing when you have ADHD. So
Right, right. Yeah, it's just really intriguing. I'm curious, what was life but like before? You said you have trauma response and we don't have to go into any, huge detail, but I know there's a lot of listeners out there that might be struggling with some similar things. And
mhm.
how did TFT like help? Maybe explain a little bit about that too, because I'm not sure, some listeners might know what it is, but
Mhm.
kind of like start like a picture, just a little bit more detail about what before and like what is TFT that really helps so much.
Sure, absolutely. So for me personally, it looked like depression and anxiety, a long term, over 20 years of my life. I would depression would kind of come and go depending on circumstances, but anxiety was always there. And then on occasion, I would have a trauma response to another situation. Get very scared or very sad, and it kind of would take over my life for maybe the rest of the day, or if it was really extreme, maybe even a week or a month.
Mhm.
And it was so hard it took up a lot of energy and focus to be
Mhm.
constantly dealing with all of these, basically emotional baggage that was coming from experiences that I had in my past. And I tried all the traditional ways. I tried some untraditional ways. It's a little more well known now, but I did counseling. I tried medication. I tried self help. I tried just pretending that everything was fine, just let it go.
Mhm.
I did EMDR, which is a little more well known now.
Mhm.
Um, and I just stumbled upon tapping. My mom actually signed me up for the session because she knew about it, and I didn't have any great hopes going into that session,
Mhm.
but I came out base released from that emotional baggage,
Mhm.
from the trauma of that had been 20 years previous.
Wow. Wow.
And so the way tapping works is that you tap on certain parts of your face and head and body. Each point correlates to a different emotion. When you think about an experience that you've had in the past or in the present, it brings up an emotional response.
Mhm.
You not only think about the details of that experience, but you also feel how
Mhm.
you felt then.
Yep.
By tapping on the points that correlate to the emotions that you're having, you give your body and brain a way of releasing that emotional response. So it's like changing the channel on the TV. You can think about the experience, you can think about the details, um, but you don't get the emotional response anymore. So it makes it much easier to deal with life in general,
Right.
because you're not pulling along a bunch of heavy baggage and the response to that, the time
Mhm.
and attention it takes. And there's TFT exercises you can do that can help you not get stressed moving forward with your
Mhm.
life.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I like to say, like, a full TFT sequence is like taking out the trash, and
Mhm.
then the exercises are like doing an everyday tidy to keep
Yeah.
things clean so you don't get overwhelmed again.
Right. Right. Yeah, and it really sounds like, any experience, any situation promotes, an emotional response. And it is. We have a thought, it creates a feeling, so it's not necessarily like it has to be something really traumatic or hard or difficult. I'm like, we have a lot of stress like every day, I'm just thinking, oh, just the little irritations of, even driving or, kids not doing what you thought they were, supposed to do or ask them to do. And you can kind of get so, it's not it's all those emotional responses, correct? And so you can kind of like tap at certain points of the body to release those. So like, oh, get those emotions out so you can better like, I guess your brain can better handle the situation. You're not running off of emotions.
Mm-hmm.
You can get
Yeah.
your brain back.
Yeah. Well, I like to think that emotions are basically just a communication.
Hmm.
It's a way of our unconscious is trying to communicate to us something is going on that we need to pay attention to. Unfortunately, a stress response creates the physiological change that makes it harder for us to
Mhm.
connect to the parts of our mind that are problem solving. So when you get stressed out, it's even more difficult to problem solve to get out of that stress. So having the ability to kind of release that emotional response gives you better control over your life without just trying to pretend that it's not happening or repressing it, like I'll deal with that later. It gives you, so there are TFT exercises you can do in the moment that help you release a stress that you're having right now. And then a full sequence can be good for stress, uh, anxiety, trauma, grief, anger, and fears and phobias.
Wow.
So any kind of emotional baggage that you're carrying, up to this point,
Hmm.
you can use the full TFT sequences to kind of release that emotional response. And then there are exercises you can do to help you out in the moment so that you don't get overwhelmed as you move forward in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. So that really was a turning point, for you to be able to now you like you said, oh, that changed. Like you were, able to, create better healthy habits. You kicked soda. I mean, that's hard. I mean, but exercise, triathlon, I'm like, oh, I didn't know that about you. Like I did some mini ones in the day, like, and it was awesome to be able to, exert yourself,
Hmm.
in different ways and challenge yourself in different ways. But that in itself is not a easy task. I mean, that is like a daily thing. Like, do you tap daily? Like, I don't need sugar today. I don't need pop. I mean, I don't need pop.
Well,
Like,
so yeah,
how
it,
does that turn out? Like,
so what I ended up doing was turning the behavior that I wanted to do into a habit. So, so when it came time to quit drinking pop, I gave myself a healthier option
mhm,
so that it was a matter of switching versus going cold turkey.
yeah.
And I sort of stepped through that process because pop was a big part of my life. And so I started them like I switched from Coke to lemonade because I still would get the sugar
Mhm,
and I wanted that. And shortly after that, I switched to unsweetened iced tea.
mhm,
So it's like every time I wanted a pop, I'm like, oh, just get an iced tea instead. And there's a whole system of support that you can build around your new behavior
mhm,
that you want to make it as easy as possible to do
yeah.
this new behavior. Don't make it hard. Don't put it a bunch of steps and barriers in the
Mhm,
way. Make it as easy as possible to do the new thing. And then celebrate the fact that you did the new thing because you're connecting that in your unconscious mind to go, oh, this is a cool thing. We like it. We want more of it. So
mhm,
you start to program your unconscious with like, this is how we behave. And
mhm.
it's a fun thing. Punishing yourself into change very rarely works.
Yeah. You know what I hear and that I like so much is that you just made a different choice. Instead of the pop, it went lemonade and then it was unsweetened tea. Like that seems so simple because sometimes I think a lot of people, I mean, I'm included in this, is that I think, well, I'm going to cut out sugar. And then we think about what we can't have or
Mhm.
that we say we're not going to have. And that creates, I think, mentally for me at least, wanting it more. Like,
Yeah.
and so I do. And there's times too where I've done the whole switch thing. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna a healthier option. So instead of, I don't know what, then I'm gonna do this and
Mhm.
a healthier option. And that seems to work a lot better. Is it something with the mindset on how positive it is?
The way our brains run our lives is very based on established on habits. Over like 50 to 60% of our behaviors every day are just automatic. And the reason that happens, the reason you build those habits in the first place is to save energy because our brains are like the resource piglet of the whole body. And so they're like, we have to save energy for times where we've got to think creatively or problem solve or fix something that's going,
Mm-hmm.
deal with something different in the environment. So anything that your brain can turn into an automatic behavior, it does that. So instead of cutting off that pattern, you can readjust the pattern that's already established. So by picking something else that gives you the same benefit
Mm-hmm.
that the original behavior did,
Mm-hmm.
then it's much easier to like do a quick switcheroo in your
Mm-hmm.
brain because you're not
Mm-hmm.
trying to overwrite the pattern, you're not trying to disconnect it or disrupt it, you're just going swaps.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it makes a big difference. And if you can kind of go, well, why am I eating a bunch of sugar? Is it
Mm-hmm.
stress relief?
Mm-hmm.
Is it energy? Because, maybe you're craving sugar at the end of the day because you wiped out your brain.
Mm-hmm.
What can I do in that moment to do a healthy swap that will give me what I need, what I was getting out of the sugar
Mm-hmm.
in a way that's going to be more sustainable long term in my life?
Right.
And then still give yourself like times when you
Yes.
can have the sweets and
Right.
just enjoy them.
Enjoy them. But you don't have to go overboard on them, have
Mm-hmm.
taste and do. But the other thing I want to mention and go back to that you said is celebrate
Mm-hmm.
when you make that healthy choice and swap, because I think a lot of people miss that part. we have to reward ourselves with like pats on the back and like, yay, good job. Like you made that good choice. Because if we don't, we just like go right through it. And we don't like, oh, what was that? That was like no big deal. So like, why would it be a big deal to do it again? Yeah. So touch on that because I think the celebration piece is huge.
So like I said before, your emotions are communicating to you, your from your unconscious mind to your consciousness. Um, the opposite it goes the other way as well. So you can consciously pull up an emotion and communicate that to your unconscious. So
Mm,
by celebrating every change, every little step that you get that you accomplish, you are signaling to your unconscious mind, hey, we like this. This is fun. This is something that we enjoy. This is something we want more of in our lives.
mhm,
And with your unconscious really running the show of your life, you want to give it the best possible information. You want to highlight the things that you consciously want more of
mhm,
so that you start to kind of program your unconscious of like, hey, pay attention. We love it when we finish this book because
mhm,
reading is a habit that's really important to us, or
mhm,
we love it when we make the choice of, oh, I'm going to have a great ripe handful of cherries instead of chocolate cake, and
mhm,
I'm really enjoying this, and letting yourself enjoy and celebrate the fact that, hey, this is great, I want
mhm,
more of this. And your unconscious will go where you point it.
mhm.
So don't point it at a criticism. Don't point
Right.
it at like that inner critic that's always giving you a hard time.
Yeah.
Point it at an inner cheerleader of always going, yeah, yeah, you got this, or yes,
Yeah.
we can do that, or isn't this fun? We're enjoying our lives.
Right, right. Yes, because that inner critic is so hard on ourselves. We are just so, so hard. We can find a million things to say, oh, we should have done that better, or this, or whatever. But the celebration of the things and the choices that we, are doing that are good for us, we need to highlight those 10 times more than we need to highlight that inner critic,
Mm-hmm.
That one's always going to come up. So we just have to like, oh, silence it a little bit by over exaggerating. Sometimes it might feel or seem some kind of silly to kind of celebrate because we're not used to it. We're not used to it. But just kind of think about like, I think about my kids, how we want to like really celebrate the little changes they did, or even if you can't think of your kids right now because maybe they're in that, ornery stage or whatever, think back to when they were just trying to walk. How excited, or like when they were first trying to talk, like how excited you were, or if you've seen kids like that, just to take those steps
Yeah,
and like, yay, and we want them to do it again. That's
yeah,
what we need to do for ourselves.
yeah, yeah. And so it's like you are the only person you have control over. So you might as well make your space a happy place to be.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you can't guarantee anybody else is going to treat you with kindness or
Mhm,
compassion or respect. And most people do, but you don't have control over that. You do have control over your mind and your space,
mhm,
and you can make it a pleasant place to be instead of with all the criticisms. And, with celebrations, it really helps to plan ahead. Like, what
mhm,
really do you enjoy? So, give yourself a menu of things
mhm.
that you can indulge in when you're celebrating. And
Yeah.
it could be anything from I don't normally give myself time to interact with people that I care about because I'm so busy work
Mhm.
or home or whatever. So maybe the indulgence is like a 15-minute phone call or video chat with somebody that you love and miss. It doesn't have to cost money. It
Mhm.
can.
Yeah.
I love silly socks. I raid the Target silly sock department for like $2. Put that away as a little celebration for later, or a chapstick. Or
Yeah.
I let my inner kid go. I have sticker charts. I'm like, yeah, having a good day. I get a sticker or a check mark or
Yeah.
whatever, and
Yeah.
just build yourself a system of celebration so that no matter what, you give yourself that little boost,
Mm.
and that will help get the attention of your unconscious, and it will give you a chance to experience it some more.
Oh, that's awesome. Go out and do that. I want to like connect a little bit because it sounded like you discovered that you had ADHD like later, like after some of this stuff. And A lot of times, I think, oh my gosh, we're just, we deal with people that have ADHD, and sometimes it's hard to recognize, sometimes in adults, but it's habits. How do habits help somebody that has a brain that likes to just go everywhere?
So I didn't get officially diagnosed until I was 46. Yeah, I kind of like, I had a counselor at one point when I was in my late 30s go, I think you're ADHD, but they had zero understanding about how it affected women at the time, or even adults to a certain
Yeah.
extent. It was like, oh, you're going to outgrow this, you're fine. Newsflash, you do not outgrow it. ADHD is a neurodevelopmental condition that means your brain is different in form and function than a typical average. They say 5 to 10% of the population is ADHD. Uh, so if you were an ADHD kid, you're an ADHD adult. You might have better systems in place to
Mhm.
support yourself, or the support people around you. But yeah, you're still dealing with it. So the way that habits help is that ADHD is categorized, or is part of it is executive dysfunction, which means the front part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, there's a disconnect. And it's not easy, it's not intuitive like it might be for someone without ADHD,
Mhm.
but if you can support the process long enough to create a habit, it saves you energy and it skips over the executive dysfunction part, because executive function is like helping you plan, helping you organize, helping you decide what to do, choose between, this step and that step. So if you preload your decision of what you want to do consistently and and then have a support system
Mhm.
to help you keep that consistent action happening over about that 90-day period, you will your brain, your unconscious will kick in and start making that happen automatically, because a habit is
Mhm.
anything you do automatically without making a decision to do it.
Mhm.
um, and because of the distractible nature of ADHD, we tend not to do the same thing the same way enough times to get the
Mhm.
unconscious attention to go, oh, we should turn this into a habit.
Yeah.
Some people argue that you cannot have habits if you have ADHD. And I really thought about that for a while because I'm like, okay. But I will counter that argument with saying that would mean that you would also never have a bad habit,
Yeah.
or bad habit, never have a unconscious or automatic behavior that you haven't decided on doing. And if you can have a bad habit, I believe you can also program a good habit. It does take more effort, it
Mhm.
does take more time, and it helps if you have support, so you're not trying to figure it out on your own.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think it would be hard. It's hard enough, to establish a good habit after you've had one that's maybe not so good.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like, I hear a lot and people are like, oh, it takes 21 days to make a habit. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. Like, who does? Like, really a sustainable habit. Maybe, yeah, yeah, you did 21 days of it. Good job. I think anybody could do something for 21 days if they really put their mind to it. But to keep it going, I think it takes really a lot longer than that. What can you say on that? Because you said 90 days.
My rule of thumb is it takes, if you have ADHD, it's going to take at least 90 days. If you don't, then it depends on the change that you're making and the support that you're giving your change. But realistically, 60 to 90 days
Mhm.
for anybody. Understanding how habits form in the first place is really, really beneficial for anyone, because you can start to see the challenges and the obstacles that come up with being able to maintain that habit. So if you go on vacation and come back home and all of a sudden you're like, I can't do things the same way. Like, how did that go? You have to plan for the interruption in your patterns, and then support yourself to get back into them.
Mhm.
Another problem can be the way that a habit works is that there has to be something that triggers the automatic behavior. And that could be a time of day. That could be, oh, after I wash the dishes, then I, do another chore. But if anything changes in that pattern and you don't have that trigger anymore, you've just lost access to that habit.
Yep.
So this is for anybody. So if it's like you just moved and now everything is in a different place or you're doing things at different times, you don't have those time-saving habits to draw on because you
Mm-hmm.
don't have the same stimulus or trigger in
Mm-hmm.
order to make that automatic behavior happen.
Yeah.
So if you understand that's what's going on, you can plan for that transition or
Mm-hmm.
you can plan for the different environment or,
Mm-hmm.
change in schedule.
Yeah, so I just a piece that I heard that I kind of like, oh, is this the reason why sometimes they want people to stack another, like if you're trying to do something new, to
Mm-hmm.
like put it right next to something that you already do on a consistent basis. So like brush your teeth or, it's something, put on your jacket or like, whatever is you add it next to something that you already do.
Yep. That habit stacking, or another way to think is the when then method. When I do this, then I do that.
Hmm.
Um, is a really effective strategy for adding something small,
Hmm.
typically small, to your daily life that's already established.
Hmm. Hmm.
If we had to think about every part of the process of getting dressed,
Hmm.
we would all be exhausted by 9 a.m. every day, no
Oh,
matter when
that
you got
alone,
up.
just trying to get up,
Yeah,
get up, figure out what you're gonna wear, figure out what you're gonna eat, get everybody out the door. Yeah, that would be pretty exhausting.
yeah,
If
and
you had to
and
like take the time to like go through all the steps of like how to zip up a coat and tie your shoe and button something up, like,
yeah, which arm do I stick in the jacket first, and which hand do I grab it with? That's a lot of what we're learning as kids is we're programming
mhm,
those habits in so you don't have to think about that anymore. So when you have something that's really nice and well established, it's easier to hook something on to the
mhm,
end of it. And usually the end of it before might be a little more difficult, but
mhm.
if you say, well, after I put on my jacket, then I make sure I lock the door,
Yeah.
or whatever it is, the new
Yep.
behavior that you need to do, or water the plants, walk the dog, whatever it
Yep.
might be.
Yeah.
It gives you a handle to be able to hang that new behavior onto.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking, it's getting towards the end of the year, and a lot of people, New Year's resolutions. Like, can you briefly, you have, you said you had custom made change is your program kind of for this habit course. So can you just tell a little bit about it, just in case people are interested in knowing what that is as they're starting the new year?
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So it's a pre-recorded video course that takes you through personalizing a plan for your own goal, whatever change you want to make, whether it's modifying something you already do or doing something new.
Hmm.
You go through the course and it helps you build a very personalized system for you and your goal. And there's 21 videos, less than 3 hours worth of time. If you're ADHD like me, you hit that fast forward or that speed up button and you can get through it even faster. So, however long you want to take, it's like I said, it's less than 3 hours. So you could do it all in one afternoon or break it up over
Yep.
time. And once you have the plan, then you're in a community where there are, I put posts in every week that help you support the plan that you have for your goal. And so
Mhm.
it's very personalized. I call it custom made because it is all about you. I give you a framework to put
Mhm.
your components into. I'm
Mhm.
not saying you have to do this XYZ. Please cram yourself into this box.
Yeah.
It's very much of like what works best for you,
Hmm.
and then here's a bunch of tools to choose from to
Hmm.
see if what works, what makes sense for you and your goal. And then there's the posts that help you support through the process, and then I'm also available for brainstorming or problem solving or just as support encouragement.
Hmm.
And I'm building a community of people that will be there for each other as well. So it's kind of a new endeavor. So I'm still filling it up, but yeah, you get the chance to make a change and be a part of a community with people who are all trying to make some kind of progress in their life.
Awesome. Awesome. So much. Where can people find out just a little bit more about you?
Well, I have a website, which is monarchdawn.com. And then custom made change is on the Circle platform. So if you go on the Circle platform, you can search custom made change. And there's an open community that's totally free
Okay.
that anybody can join and be a part of. And there's resources, more information about the course, ADHD habits, a bunch of general stuff. And
Mhm.
then the course is a paid membership that's also a part of that.
Awesome. I'll put all of those links in the show notes so people can easily access those.
Thank you.
So I just want to can you touch a little bit? I know you're one of the authors in this book. Can you just touch a little bit on what your story is in the book? Don't give it away, but just,
The story in the book is my experience leading up to experiencing TFT, what I was going through and why I needed TFT, and then the difference that it made
Mhm.
for me personally. Um, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it was such a moving story. So it's just, I mean, all of the stories in there can really help anyone, through any kind of situation, just because they can relate, I think, really well,
yeah,
and just be able to shift a little bit of that mindset to be able to go forward and really transform lives. So thank you.
yeah. I love the book. Everybody, I mean, I just feel like anybody who reads the book is going to find at least two or three stories where like, oh yeah, and they get relate to it, resonate with it, and it's really so many powerful stories of being able to go from point A to to
Mhm.
make that transformation and live a better life. And I'm super thankful to have the opportunity to be a part of the project, partially to speak with other people who've been through the same experience, but
Mhm.
also to share TFT because I looked for 20 years
Yeah.
and never found it. I found it by accident and
Mhm.
want other people to have the opportunity to work with whoever with TFT, but to know that it's out there so that
Yeah.
they can access it.
Yes, very well. Thank you. So as we wrap up today, is there any leaving quote, thought, or anything that you want to leave the listeners with?
I think the most important tool that anybody can use for themselves is giving themselves grace. Just you talked about earlier, really be kind to yourself,
Mhm.
give yourself grace, and and focus on really making that a part of your regular daily life of accepting and approving of yourself.
Mhm.
And it just that kind of acceptance makes a huge difference. And when you come from that place, everything else flows and works a lot better.
Definitely, definitely. We need to be more kind to ourselves, know that we have choices and we can make those better choices for us. And we're going to live a happier life and celebrating that as well.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Jennifer. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to share.